So hello, welcome back to Go Again Gaming. Today's little conversation is going to be all about the Azalea Armory Deck cards that we've seen so far. Now, just a quick disclaimer, I did actually record a video with Tommy Fresh around this particular subject, and you can see on your screens now, this was the video that we filmed. But unfortunately, the video quality was bad and the audio was bad as well. So lesson learned on that front. But we're going to speak about the Azalea cards today nonetheless, because it looks pretty cool, and it looks like LSS is taking Ranger and Azalea and Riptide potentially to the aim counter shenanigans going forward. I don't think at the moment aim counters are able to be built around as like an aim counter tribal. I think it's more of like a deck building, conscious deck building decision as to how many aim counter cards or aim counter payoffs you want to include in your deck. Now, luckily with the cards that we're going to discuss today, they can be used in the strategies that are popular at the moment, like Death Dealer Azalea, for instance. And we're going to be speaking about Azalea mainly. Riptide is not really my sort of thing. It's a shame because we did record a lot of the video speaking about Riptide, because Tommy Fresh and Buds loves a bit of Riptide. So I'm going to have to keep that out today because he's the expert on that. Yeah, we might sort of talk about it here and there if things come to mind, but the first thing that comes to mind for me at least is Azalea. But before we go into this, please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and do all that good stuff. Links in the description box below to how you can support the channel directly as well. That'd be fantastic. Check that out when you can. But yeah, the Azalea Armory deck at the moment has come with 4 new cards. I imagine there's probably going to be more as well as we get that spoiler on the 2nd of August. It's coming out 2nd of August, about a month or so away before we get and see the full deck list. Going to be interesting to see what the full deck list is with these cards, sort of as a sort of premeditated look at what we can see or expect from this particular deck. But yeah, so without further ado, we'll go into one of the main cards, which I think is going to see, well, it's definitely going to see some play in my deck. I'm not sure about the red line lists that a lot of people are playing at the moment, and the zero cost lists that are out there. But this is Line It Up. So Line It Up is pretty cool. It's a yellow pitch card, costs 1 to play, blocks for 3. So this templating is very similar to Deadeye. It says your next arrow attack this turn gets +3. So it's similar to what Deadeye says. I'll flash them both up here for you so you can see the comparison. And it just says you may turn a face down arrow in your arsenal face up. If you do, put an aim counter on it. Now, I think this is pretty cool. It's just face up a good buff for Ranger, right? The reason why we were playing Deadeyes in the deck was because of the fact that they were yellow block 3s that give you an next arrow +3, and if you manage to pull off the aim counter shenanigans, then you're going to get a lot of extra value. And I imagine this is probably something similar as well. Is Line It Up is a simple yellow block 3 resource card most of the time, but it gives your next arrow attack +3, and it can be used if you do manage to get the aim counter shenanigans off. It can be used to squeeze extra value out of the aim counter, which is on that arrow. So Judge, Jury, Executioner, immobilizing shot. It's going to give you a lot of decisions as well, because all these cards in this deck just give you more aim counter reliability and consistency. Whereas at the moment in the other sort of Death Dealer Azalea list, it's all about just gassing out cards through the draw card mechanic off of Death Dealer, the big buffs, the dominates. It's not about aim counters. And we have seen Azalea use, and obviously she's got a specialization called Crow's Nest, which allows you to put an aim counter on something if it's ripped off of the top of the deck through Azalea's ability. But Line It Up is just one of those cards that will allow you to play your same sort of strategy at the moment by sort of arsenaling cards face down going into your next turn, ponder tokens going into your next turn. It just allows you to sort of select what you want to do. It allows you to line things up, no pun intended, the way that you want. And it just opens up even more lines for Azalea that weren't actually available before, because the other aim counter cards that we've had in the past, things like Point the Tip, target face up arrow in your arsenal gets +3, put an aim counter on it. That's just not, the play patterns just don't really work from experience, because you have to have the arrow face up already. So the play patterns aren't as good, and they're quite clunky. Whereas the other buffs that we've seen are just target arrow gets +3, and then you can do something after that if it hits or whatever. Whereas this one, the line it up, allows you to do that. It allows you to just put a next arrow attack on the stack, gets +3, and then you can turn something up in your arsenal. It doesn't just die. It doesn't just fizzle, because you know it's not a clunky card like Point the Tip is. Because if you don't have a face-up arrow, if you have a face-down arrow in your arsenal, you can't actually play Point the Tip. You can't use it as a chain starter. It's just garbage unless you've then used your Skullbone to flip up, or if you've used something already to turn that arrow face up. If it's still face down, then you can't actually use Point the Tip, which is why it's quite clunky. You know, and there's not much else in Ranger's entire suite that puts aim counters on things. You've got Crow's Nest, of course, but again, that is whenever an arrow is put face up into your arsenal from your deck. So the only way you're going to be able to do that in Azalea is through Azalea's ability, or if you use something like Sandscour Great Bow, which is not really the bow of choice at the moment. Death Dealer is what was the bow that a lot of people are using, if not everybody is using right now, because it's just so gas. Allowing you to draw a card is just absolutely insane. Sandscour Great Bow has seen some success. I think one of the guys from Card Advantage managed to do quite well with it recently. I think Yorgos, the Greek fella, goes by Fab Chaos on Twitter, also had some luck with this sort of list, with running Sandscour. But I'm not sure whether it was aim counter heavy or not. I can't remember, but I think Line It Up is just going to allow you to have more aim counter consistency while still running the typical Azalea strategy, because it's just like Deadeye. We all love Deadeye. A lot of lists have seen Deadeye being taken out because it's not a 0 cost, but you know, it's one of my favourites. A lot of people speak highly of Deadeye simply because it's a yellow pitch, block 3, resource card that can pump up arrows. If you do get the additional text, you get a load of value out of it, but if you don't, it's still just a good card. Which is decent. And I imagine Line It Up is again one of those cards that can fit into that strategy, but it will also help you squeeze more value out of your aim counter cards as well. And it gives you that sort of deck building decision as to, oh, okay, maybe I do run a one-of immobilizing shot, for instance. Maybe I run a one-of barbed undertow. Maybe I run a one-of another card that cares about aim counters. Judge, Jury, Executioner is another card that obviously needs an aim counter on it, and that is something that Azalea and only Azalea can use. Haven't really seen it pop off in big major tournaments so far, because of that aim counter hoop that you have to jump through. So maybe cards like Line It Up can really sort of line it up to a certain degree. Because if you draw Judge, Jury, Executioner into your hand, you can't actually get the aim counter on it at the moment in a lot of lists. You have to. The only way you can get Judge, Jury, Executioner and aim counter on it at the moment is through Crow's Nest, and that's something like through Knock the Death Whistle. If you draw Judge, Jury, Executioner into your hand currently, at the moment, you're not able to get an aim counter onto it. Which is a bit rubbish, to be honest, unless you're running things like Point the Tip, which in that case you have to then set up the Judge, Jury, Executioner in your arsenal, then you then have to flip it up to cross wrap, then put an aim counter on it through Point the Tip, and then fire it. It's just very, very clunky. Whereas with a couple of other cards that we're going to go into today, you can not only draw the Judge, Jury, Executioner into your hand, as well as other things like, you know, immobilizing shot and barbed undertow. You're actually able to utilize aim counter matters cards from your hand rather than just the top of your deck, which is what Azalea, you know, has cared about aim counters. That's the only way she's really cared about aim counters in the past, is just off of the top of the deck. Whereas you're now able to, with this card, Line It Up as well as the others, you can actually get a few aim counters on things that are in your hand, which is pretty cool. So yeah, Line It Up I reckon is going to be very, very cool. It's going to be able to squeeze a lot of value out of all the sedation, withering, infecting shots. Going to be able to give you a lot of +1s on those if you set that sort of thing up. And the other aim counter cards as well, as I mentioned, immobilizing shot, barbed undertow, Judge, Jury, Executioner, all very, very interactive cards that work with aim counters. So with things like Line It Up, getting those effects off every now and again, coupled with things like Deadeye, if you can get Line It Up and Deadeye onto something, then again you're having a huge turn with a very relevant on hit, coupled with the on hit of the actual arrow that you've put the aim counter on. Could be very good stuff. But yeah, line it up, very good card. I absolutely love it. Can't wait to use it, and it's going to be interesting to see how it performs alongside the Azalea decks and what they're using at the moment. So another card that we've alluded to as well is giving you more reliability and consistency on aim counter-esque arrows that care about it, and that's sharpshooters. So this is a Ranger Equipment Arms. It's got Battle Worn 1, so this is actually an arm piece that we can block with alongside the long draw half glove. So you've actually got quite a few battle worn equipments now, and just equipments in general for Ranger. We've got sharpshooters, long draw half glove, and bullseye braces are the main three that you want to look at, and depending on which one you want to choose will determine what sort of lines you can actually get. But sharpshooters, I think, is very good. I think it is very good because it starts in play, stays in play, that puts an aim counter on any arrow from your hand. So as I was mentioning earlier, without this piece of equipment, if you drew something like Judge, Jury, Executioner, Garbed Undertow, or Immobilizing Shot into your hand, all of which are just fantastic arrows all around, if you drew one of those cards into your hand, you're never really going to be able to get the effect of the aim counter, because you have to, with Azalea at least, you have to rip the card that you want an aim counter on off the top of your deck. Whereas with sharpshooters, you can actually include more aim counter cards in the sort of safety knowing that you can put any of those aim counter cards into your arsenal with an aim counter on it. So sharpshooters says, action, destroy this, put an arrow from your hand face up into your arsenal with an aim counter on it, go again. So again, if you're drawing anything like Judge, Jury, Executioner, Immobilizing Shot, Barbed Undertow, or any of the other arrows for that matter, like Drill Shot, I know we don't really care about the aim counter on that, giving it Piercing 1, but you're going to be able to do that if you want to. Infecting Shot, Withering Shot, and Sedation Shot, all of those arrows will then get +1 from the aim counter being on it, as well as other things as well, like Merc Myers and Falcon Wings, getting that extra damage on the aim counter. So if you draw any of those cards into your hand, but more importantly, speaking about Judge, Jury, Immobilizing Shot, and Barbed Undertow, with the sharpshooters you're able to get that aim counter onto those, not having to rip it off the top like we always had to do. So probably mentioned it already, and I'm just rambling at this point, but the only way we would be able to get aim counters on things through Azalea is off the top of the deck through Crow's Nest, and normally to access that we would have to either just see it on top of the deck through an opt, like a Read the Glide Path or a Skullbone, or we would have to go and search for it via Knock the Death Whistle. We put it on the top of the deck, we then activate Azalea to put that thing into the arsenal, then we pay an extra 1 to put the aim counter on it. It's very resource intensive. So with sharpshooters, what we can do is just reliably say, right, okay, when I draw this aim counter matters card, I'm going to be able to play it. I'm going to be able to put that aim counter on it from hand, which I think is a very important thing to establish, because it allows you to make those different choices in deck building, where you can be like, oh, okay, yeah, well, if I draw an Immobilizing Shot, or if I draw a Judge, Jury, Executioner, I can get that into my arsenal with an aim counter on it, and that's going to buff it up massively. The Judge, Jury, Executioner effect is insane, let's be honest. These things will probably not have Dominate unless you do rip it off the top, but again, it just gives you more options if you do want to run these interactive cards that are clearly going to be going very tall or wide. Now, speaking of wide, we've also got an interesting card in the deck called Flight Path. So again, another piece of legs. Another legs piece that we can include in our Ranger decks now, that gives us access to quite a few things. You've got Flight Path, Perch Grapplers, and Snappies now, which are all pretty cool options. But again, this one alludes to flight counters, aim counters. So Battle Worn 1, pretty sick, and then it says, as an attack reaction, we can destroy this, target arrow with an aim counter, gets go again. So that's pretty cool. It's like a Snapdragon Scalers, but for arrows with aim counters on them only. Now, the main differences really between this and Snapdragon Scalers is obviously the fact that it needs an aim counter on the arrow to get go again. Snappies also gives anything with cost 1 or less go again, but the differences are with this is that you can give things like Battering Bolt go again, you can give things like Murky Waters and Riptide go again. Typically you can't give those things go again with Snappies because of the cost of the card, but this just says target arrow with an aim counter on it gets go again. So you can actually utilise Flight Path and Sharpshooters in the same turn to fire not only a very, very interactive arrow, but something which could also be given go again as well at the same time. So you're sort of doing it the other way around. You could do Sharpshooters, put something in, then give it go again through the Flight Path, then you use Death Dealer to activate the bow and put something else in, draw a card. So it's kind of working in reverse. Normally with things like Bullseye, you want to do that on the end of the chain, or like a chain extender. Sometimes you use it at the start, depending on whether you want to achieve like a wide bolt and shot line, because obviously Bullseye Bracers does put the arrow in with +1. So there's arguments to be made that if you want to go an extra, if you want to go wider, or if you don't have a hand that can actually achieve go again, if you've got a bolt and shot, the Bullseye Bracers can sometimes fix that. But then that being said, if you run Sharpshooters and Flight Path, you can achieve go again anyway. You can still replicate a Bullseye Bracers because of the fact that Sharpshooters put something in with an aim counter and then Flight Path gives it go again. You can still replicate a Bullseye Bracers bolt and shot-esque sort of line with those two cards anyway. You just have to use them both that same turn, which is a bit of a shame. But Flight Path is pretty sick. What you have to realise is that obviously this one blocks for an additional 1. So, you know, Snapdragons doesn't block for anything. And obviously this gives you go again on any arrow with an aim counter. So if you're thinking about the big arrows like Battering Bolt, that's something that you can achieve through this. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool. Nice little addition to the list, and again, it just gives you more sort of deck building ideas and things that you think, oh, okay, so maybe if I do want to include a couple of aim counter cards that have payoffs, I can actually give those cards go again with Flight Path. That's interesting, right? So yeah, it just gives you more options, and it blocks for 1 as well. So if you do want to lean into the aim counter style stuff, you can still run this, and also it can block for 1. So pretty good. We've never had that ability in the legs as of yet, unless we use Perch Grapplers. But Perch Grapplers is a very, very resource intensive card if you do want to go again out of that, but normally that's just used for block. So Flight Path is somewhere in the middle of those two things. You can use it to block, but you can also use it to give something go again, as long as you're coupling it with Sharpshooters or line it up through the aim counters. So just more options, more things that we can do, and yeah, so really liking the look of all these cards. We do have another card as well called Target Totalizer, although this one is a little bit more. I don't think we want to use this, to be honest. The other cards are fantastic, but I just don't know about this right now. It depends what the other cards are that we get in the Azalea deck. Maybe there's another card that puts more aim counters on things or gives us more of that aim counter consistency. But until that time comes, it's hard to make a judgment on it. But this is a Ranger Equipment head. It doesn't have any block value, so you can't block with it. It just simply says, action, destroy this. Whenever an arrow with an aim counter hits this turn, draw a card. Go again. Yeah, it's the real question about Target Totalizer is what value do you get out of this? Because obviously your arrows with aim counters need to hit before you draw a card. So I think you might be forcing a little bit of blocks on this, but even then, you know, you have to get those cards. You have to be able to use those cards that you draw. Otherwise, you're just losing value. So yeah, it's an interesting one. Maybe it's a nice little setup card. So if you're able to line it up, flip an arrow face up, get an aim counter on it, fire that one, and then threaten the on hit of draw a card, then you draw a card and then you get to go again, perhaps off of the Flight Path. Then you use your Sharpshooters to put something else in, you then fire that off, and then you'll be able to draw a card if that one hits, and then you have to follow it up again with another activation. So maybe you then use your bow, which you haven't used yet. So yeah, it's a massive setup card. And it is very strong, but the sort of reservations that I have about it at the moment is how many times can you get not only arrows in your arsenal to fire, but arrows with aim counters on them. So it seems like a huge setup card, but something that would be really, really cool if it does happen. But this is the one I'm the most skeptical about at the moment, without seeing the rest of the list and any other new cards that we get from the Azalea Armory deck. But yeah, very much looking forward to this deck, and leave a comment section below as to what you think. Hopefully we get the new card. I think there should be some more cards in here. There's 4 new cards. I think KO had 4 new ones as well. Maybe there's not any new ones. Maybe that's it. But yeah, leave a comment section below as to what you think. Please make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, do all that good stuff. Check out the link in the description box below for ways you can help support the channel, join the Discord, and all that good stuff. We'll see you soon. Cheers.